Chapter 24. Marriage and Divorce. 1. Marriage is to be between one man and one woman. It is not lawful for any man to have more than one wife, or for any woman to have more than one husband, at the same time.
Genesis, chapter 2, verse 24. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother, and cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh.
Matthew, chapter 19, verse 5-6. And said, For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate.
Romans, chapter 7, verse 3. So then, if while her husband is living she is joined to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from the law, so that she is not an adulteress, though she is joined to another man.
Proverbs, chapter 2, verse 17. Who forsakes the close companion of her youth, and forgets the covenant of her God.
2. Marriage was ordained for the mutual help of husband and wife, for the increase of mankind with legitimate offspring and of the church with godly children, and for the prevention of sexual immorality.
Genesis, chapter 2, verse 18. Then Yahweh God said, It is not good for the man to be alone, I will make him a helper suitable for him.
Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 28. So husbands ought also to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself.
1 Peter, chapter 3, verse 7. You husbands in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with a weaker vessel, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered.
Genesis, chapter 1, verse 28. God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over every living thing that creeps on the earth. Genesis 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth.
Malachi, chapter 2, verse 15. But not one has done so, even one who has a remnant of the Spirit. And what did that one do while he was seeking a godly seed? Be careful then to keep your spirit, and let no one deal treacherously against the wife of your youth.
1 Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 2. But because of sexual immoralities, each man is to have his own wife, and each woman is to have her own husband. 1 Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 9. But if they do not have self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion.
3. It is lawful for all sorts of people to marry, who are able to give their intelligent consent. Yet it is the duty of Christians to marry only in the Lord. Therefore, those who profess the true Reformed religion should not marry unbelievers, Roman Catholics, or other idolaters, nor should Christians be unequally yoked by marrying those who are notoriously wicked in their way of living or hold to damnable heresies.
Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 4. Marriage is to be held in honor among all, and the marriage bed is to be undefiled, for the sexually immoral and adulterers God will judge.
1 Timothy, chapter 4, verse 3. Who forbid marriage and advocate abstaining from foods which God created to be shared in with thanksgiving by those who believe and know the truth.
1 Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 36-38. But if any man thinks that he is acting unbecomingly toward his virgin daughter, if she is past her youth, and if it must be so, let him do what he wishes, he does not sin, let her marry. But he who stands firm in his heart, being under no compulsion, but has authority over his own will, and has decided this in his own heart, to keep his own virgin daughter, he will do well. So then both he who gives his own virgin daughter in marriage does well, and he who does not give her in marriage will do better.
Genesis, chapter 24, verse 57-58. And they said, We will call the young woman and ask about her wishes. Then they called Rebekah and said to her, Will you go with this man? And she said, I will go.
1 Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 39. A wife is bound as long as her husband lives, But if her husband has fallen asleep, she is free to be married to whom she wishes, only in the Lord.
Genesis, chapter 34, verse 14. And they said to them, We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. Exodus, chapter 34, verse 16. And you take some of his daughters for your sons, and his daughters play the harlot with their gods, and cause your sons also to play the harlot with their gods.
2 Corinthians, chapter 6, verse 14. Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership have righteousness and lawlessness? Or what fellowship is light with darkness?
Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 3-4. Furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them, you shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your sons away from following me, and they will serve other gods, then the anger of Yahweh will be kindled against you, and he will quickly destroy you.
1 Kings, chapter 11, verse 4. Now it happened at the time that Solomon was old, his wives turned his heart away after other gods, and his heart was not wholly devoted to Yahweh his God, as the heart of David his father had been.
Nehemiah, chapter 13, verse 25-27. So I contended with them and cursed them and struck some of them and pulled out their hair and made them swear by God, You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor take up their daughters for your sons or for yourselves. Did not Solomon king of Israel sin regarding these things? Yet among the many nations there was no king like him, and he was loved by his God, and God gave him to be king over all Israel. Nevertheless the foreign women caused even him to sin. Do we then hear about you that you have done all this great evil by acting unfaithfully against our God by marrying foreign women?
Malachi, chapter 2, verse 11-12. Judah has dealt treacherously, and an abomination has been done in Israel and in Jerusalem, for Judah has profaned the sanctuary of Yahweh which he loves and has married the daughter of a foreign god. As for the man who does this, may Yahweh cut off from the tents of Jacob everyone who awakes and answers or who presents an offering to Yahweh of hosts.
4. Marriage ought not to take place between persons who are within the degrees of close relationship by blood or by marriage forbidden by the word. Such incestuous marriages can never be made lawful, so that such persons may live together as man and wife, by any law of man or by the consent of the parties involved.
Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 6-17. None of you shall approach any blood relative of his to uncover nakedness, I am Yahweh. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, that is, the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother, you are not to uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife, it is your father's nakedness. The nakedness of your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether born at home or born outside, their nakedness you shall not uncover. The nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you shall not uncover, for their nakedness is yours. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, born to your father, she is your sister, you shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister, she is your father's blood relative. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, for she is your mother's blood relative. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother, you shall not approach his wife, she is your aunt. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law, she is your son's wife, you shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife, it is your brother's nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and of her daughter, nor shall you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter, to uncover her nakedness, they are blood relatives. It is lewdness. Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 24-30. So do not defile yourselves by any of these things, for by all these the nations which I am casting out before you have become defiled. So the land has become defiled, and I have brought its punishment upon it. And the land has vomited out its inhabitants. But as for you, ye shall keep my statutes and my judgments and shall not do any of these abominations, neither the native nor the sojourner who sojourns among you. For the men of the land who have been before you have done all these abominations, and the land has become defiled. So that the land will not vomit you out, should you defile it, as it has vomited out the nation which has been before you. For whoever does any of these abominations, those persons who do so shall be cut off from among their people. Thus you are to keep my charge, that you do not do any of the abominable statutes which have been done before you, so as not to defile yourselves with them. I am Yahweh your God.
Leviticus, chapter 20, verse 19. You shall also not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister or of your father's sister, for such a one has made naked his blood relative. They will bear their guilt.
1 Corinthians 5. Sexual immorality in the church. It is actually reported that there is sexual immorality among you, and sexual immorality of such a kind as does not exist even among the Gentiles, that someone has his father's wife.
Amos, chapter 2, verse 7. These who pant after the very dust of the earth on the head of the poor. Also turn aside the way of the humble. And a man and his father go to the same young woman, in order to profane my holy name.
Mark, chapter 6, verse 18. For John had been saying to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife."
Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 24 to 28. So do not defile yourselves by any of these things, for by all these the nations which I am casting out before you have become defiled. So the land has become defiled, and I have brought its punishment upon it. And the land has vomited out its inhabitants. But as for you, you shall keep my statutes and my judgments and shall not do any of these abominations, neither the native nor the sojourner who sojourns among you. For the men of the land who have been before you have done all these abominations, and the land has become defiled. So that the land will not vomit you out, should you defile it, as it has vomited out the nation which has been before you.
5. Adultery or fornication committed after engagement, if detected before marriage, gives valid reason to the innocent party to break the engagement. In the case of adultery after marriage, it is lawful for the innocent party to seek a divorce and after the divorce to remarry, just as if the offending party were dead.
Matthew, chapter 1, verse 18 to 20. The conception and birth of Jesus. Now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together she was found to be with child by the Holy Spirit. And Joseph her husband, being a righteous man and not wanting to disgrace her, planned to send her away secretly. But when he had considered this, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife, for the one who has been conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit.
Deuteronomy, chapter 22, verse 23 to 24. If there is a girl who is a virgin engaged to a man, and another man finds her in the city and lies with her, then you shall bring them both out to the gate of that city, and you shall stone them, and they will die. The girl, because she did not cry out in the city, and the man, because he has violated his neighbor's wife. Thus you shall purge the evil from among you.
Matthew, chapter 5, verse 31 to 32. Now it was said, whoever sends his wife away, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery.
Matthew, chapter 19, verse 9. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another woman commits adultery.
Romans, chapter 7, verse 2 to 3. For the married woman has been bound by law to her husband while he is living, but if her husband dies, she is released from the law concerning the husband. So then, if while her husband is living she is joined to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband dies, she is free from the law, so that she is not an adulteress, though she is joined to another man.
6. Although the corruption of mankind is such that people are apt to seek arguments to justify unwarranted separation of those whom God has joined together in marriage, nothing but adultery or such willful desertion as cannot be remedied by the church or the civil authorities is sufficient cause to dissolve the bond of marriage. In such cases a public and orderly procedure is to be observed, and the persons concerned are not to be left to their own wills and discretion in their own case.
Matthew, chapter 19, verse 8-9. He said to them, Because of your hardness of heart Moses permitted you to divorce your wives, but from the beginning it has not been this way. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another woman commits adultery.
1 Corinthians, chapter 7, verse 15. Yet if the unbelieving one leaves, let him leave. The brother or the sister is not enslaved in such cases, but God has called us to peace.
Matthew, chapter 19, verse 6. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate.
Deuteronomy 24. Statutes about divorce. If a man takes a wife and marries her, and it happens that she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some indecency in her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out from his house, and she goes out of his house and goes and becomes another man's wife. And if the latter husband turns against her and writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the latter husband dies who took her to be his wife, then her former husband who sent her away is not allowed to take her again to be his wife, since she has been defiled. For that is an abomination before Yahweh. And you shall not bring sin on the land which Yahweh your God gives you as an inheritance.